San Francisco, until somebody takes them down. Now, they have to do it in a Super Bowl. They've won 25 games the last 2 years. They've been pretty impressive. And they found a quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant, and he's become a star in Brock Purdy. And they got McCaffrey. And they redid Deebo Samuel's contract yesterday. That's why they came up with the money for Brandon Ayuk. And they got George Kittle. I mean, that's a phenomenal offensive package that Kyle Shanahan has to work with. Defensively, they've gone through a little bit of transition there. They've lost some people, but man, they got Nick Bosa, and Nick Bosa makes things happen on the field, and they're very active linebackers. They've found some guys to play in the secondary, some guys they got in free agency. I just think it's a really good football team offensively and a real physical football team defensively. Rams, I think Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the NFL in terms of messaging with players how to be good in the NFL, and he's done it. And what I thought was going to be misery, a year ago this week, he had an absolute crap season in 2022 and thought about quitting. And I remember saying on this podcast, he didn't like 2022. This might be worse in 2023. And what they did, they won 10 games. Mm. He coached those kids up. Now, they had a stroke of luck. They hardly had any injuries at all last season. Their offensive line played every game in front of Matthew Stafford. When was the last time in society you ever saw that in the NFL? No. Never. So that was last year. This year is going to be harder. I mean, there's no doubt Stafford's accomplishments in his resume. There's no doubt how the greatness of Cooper Kupp, but he's had a knee injury, and that's been a big issue. There's no doubt about the tight end, Tyler Higbee, but he's not there. He's on IR with an injury. Puka Nacua came out of nowhere. The kid out of BYU, what a phenomenal rookie season he had. Kyron Williams, headed for his third year at Notre Dame, heavy-duty running back, and they drafted Blake Corum, Michigan, dart dash, third down back. So I think their skill people are good. The problem is what's happened up front. They didn't experience this last year. They are down 3 offensive linemen to start the season.
That's brutal.
And those are all starters. Outside of their number 1 draft pick last year, all the key guys are hurt. So they're going to Detroit into the Lions' den on opening day, and they're facing those Lions who are showing their teeth in that pass rush with backup offensive linemen. That's going to be hard. So, and defensively, they lost 2 of their top 3 cornerbacks. There is no Aaron Donald to anchor everything at the defensive tackle, and they traded away Ernest Jones, the linebacker. Now, they drafted 2 really good pass rushers, in Jared Verse and Brandon Fisk. They're both going to start. But that defensive side of the football now, without Aaron Donald and with Ernest Jones having just been traded, that is going to be such a young defense, and they're going to probably go through some growing pains. I got the Rams finishing second. I just don't think it's going to be easy. Seattle, life after Pete Carroll, young defense. They have drafted a lot of young guys. They've thrown them on the field. The life after the Legion of Doom has been kind of painful. The Super Bowl teams that Pete Carroll had, they're fixing their defense. They do have Geno Smith back at quarterback. They do have DK Metcalf. They're 3 deep at wide receiver, which I think is going to be positive. And they got a heavy-duty running back. I think is going to have a breakout season in Kenneth McIntosh. He's from Michigan State. But no Pete Carroll there. So that bears watching to see how they do, though the coach they got from the Baltimore Ravens to become head coach, I think has great, great credentials. And then there's Arizona. And maybe I'm going to get skewered on this one. I do take opinion stands that sometimes people don't agree with. You think?
Who, you?
No, not me. They got Kyler Murray, and he is a great talent. And they got James Conner, who's a heavy-duty, complete running back. And they drafted Marvin Harrison, who is an absolute studded wide receiver. But I don't like their offensive line. I don't think they have enough defense. They were miserable last year. Jonathan Gannon came in. He was a former coordinator in Philadelphia, got the head job. I thought he was going to make an impact, and they had a miserable season. Of course, Murray kept getting hurt. I just don't think they have enough players. But it'll be interesting to watch the dynamics of that quarterback, that do everything running back, and that kid wide receiver from Ohio State. But I just don't think they have enough players. So that's my view on the NFC West. I know your heart is in the NFC West. Don't lie to me. You're a transplanted 49er from San Francisco. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you got to pick the Niners here, right? I mean, obviously, they're the top team in the division. It was interesting reading in your best 15 that Brandon Ayuk finally came to a contract resolution. And then I was reading that he even admitted that he probably pushed it too far in the negotiation. What's your take on that?
Well, that's him. Does the correct term apply here? Diva?
Yeah.
God, I get tired of it. I don't think I could be a general manager in the NFL. Because your responsibility, John Riley, as a general manager in the NFL is the whole team, not the one diva wide receiver or the holdout left tackle who's got 3 years left on his contract and now wants it redone again. If I was a GM, I think I'd have a meltdown. I'd tell my left tackle, you don't want to play. That's your name. That's your signature on the contract. You don't want to play. Apply for a job down at Dairy Queen. Now, that might not be a smart way to do business because you'd be running off one of the best left tackles in the league. But somewhere along the way, if you sign a bloody contract, shouldn't you hold up to terms of the contract, especially since we restructured it already? So I don't know how John Lynch got through all this without losing his mind. But they got him signed. All these guys are on the field. Now they go play and win. What's your take on McVay and the Rams?
Rams fans, generally speaking, seem to be optimistic. A lot of people are saying Jared Verse is a terrific pick. He's going to make a big difference. I worry what you're saying is the offensive line and their ability to protect Stafford. Because if Stafford goes down, then what are you left with? Is it going to be the Stetson kid from Georgia?
Stetson Bennett. If Stafford were going to hurt in weeks 1 or 2, Stetson Bennett has to play because Jimmy Garoppolo has a 2-game suspension. Garoppolo will be the backup quarterback starting in week 3, but it's just not going to be the same team. And, they got through with no injuries in their offensive front last year. I've never, ever seen an offensive front. All the starters started every game. Never seen that ever. So I think it's going to be tough there. Okay. That is the NFL preview.
Can I just make one general comment here?
Go ahead, step in it.
This is kind of a weird thing, but I even remember about when we were doing the preview for Major League Baseball, remember I made a comment that it always seems to start with the AL East and finish with the NL West. And sure as hell, that's how we just did the thing for the football. We started with the AFC East and worked our way to the NFC West.
It's your fault. I blame you entirely. You're the one that wanted to do this podcast. You're the one that introduced me to do this podcast. If you don't like the format of the podcast, it's on you.
No. I mean, you're just reinforcing what everyone else does in the media too. And so we're always at the tail end in the National League.
This podcast is